You have just started the Fort Riley Elk Season Pre-Hunt Briefing. The Fort Riley Elk Season dates and an overview of the rules and regulations that will be covered in this briefing can be found in the Fort Riley Outdoor Recreation Map and Regulation Summary and in the Fort Riley Elk Hunting Fact Sheet. Be sure to have a copy of both before heading into the field. These documents can be found here on the Fort Riley iSportsman website or at the Fort Riley Environmental Division Office Building 407 Pershing Court. At the conclusion of this briefing, you will be given a short quiz. When you have successfully completed and passed the quiz, your iSportsman account will be updated with your elk permit to reflect that you have taken and completed the briefing, allowing you to check in and out to elk hunt on Fort Riley. If you have any questions or problems with this process, please call the Environmental Division Office at 785-239-6211. During this briefing, you will be prompted by a red pause button at the top left corner of your screen. It is recommended that you pause the video to completely read the material on the screen. Fort Riley Regulation 190-1 requires that all firearms brought on post be registered with Fort Riley. Firearms must be registered regardless of military or civilian status. Firearms may be registered at the Visitor Control Center. For more information about registration procedures, review the privately owned firearm guide under the Regulations tab on the fortriley.iSportsman.net website. A reminder, transporting a loaded firearm on Fort Riley is prohibited. In addition, Fort Riley Regulation 190-1 prohibited practices include carrying concealed on one's person any weapon. Kansas concealed carry handgun permits and those issued by other states are not recognized on Fort Riley, and possessing any device or attachment of any kind which is designed, used, or intended for use in silencing the report of any firearm is unauthorized. Hunting procedures. Fort Riley has an automated web check-in-out system found here at fortriley.iSportsman.net. If you need assistance in registering or using the system, please contact the Environmental Office. Failure to complete this process daily is a violation. Offenders may have hunting privileges suspended for 30 to 60 days. Upon registration, you'll be able to check in, check out on a daily basis using any personal device with internet access or by visiting the Army One-Stop Kiosk located at the Visitor Control Center or by visiting the Environmental Office Building 407 during normal business hours. Fort Riley iSportsman registration and daily check-in-out is required to recreate in Fort Riley's training areas. A reminder, BlackBerry and smartphone users can check in, check out using the fortriley.iSportsman.net/kiosk for a faster service time. Fort Riley off-limits areas. The impact area and MPRC are off-limits at all times. Other areas may be off-limits during all or part of the elk season. Listings and or maps of off-limits areas will be posted on the Fort Riley iSportsman website and at Building 407 during the elk season. Before recreating on Fort Riley, you must understand how to determine what areas are open, what areas are closed, and how to distinguish those areas from each other. All fish and game harvested on Fort Riley should normally be cleaned and processed in the field where taken, with the deposition of carcass and entrails being at least 100 feet from any road. Carcasses must not be disposed of in any live waterway that contains water or normally contains water, to include ponds, lakes, creeks, rivers, and dry creek beds. All fish and game must be covered or otherwise completely concealed from view of those outside the vehicle while it is being transported on Fort Riley. Fish and game carcasses that are not taken directly to a processor off post must be completely covered from view at all times until completely consumed or otherwise properly disposed. Any parts of game, including fish entrails, that are not properly deposited in an open recreational area must be double bagged, tied shut, and disposed of in general refuse. The hunter orange requirements for Fort Riley elk hunters and their assistants is consistent with the state of Kansas elk hunting requirements. Each person should have a hunter orange hat and at least 100 square inches of hunter orange on the front of their torso and 100 square inches of hunter orange on the back of their torso. Additional regulations you should know. All stands and ground blinds must be marked with a permanent marker or engraving in an externally visible manner with a hunter's KDWPT number. Ground blinds and stands used to conceal the person or persons within them must have no less than 100 square inches of blaze orange showing on each side of the stand or blind while it is occupied during a Fort Riley Firearms deer season. Stands and ground blinds may not be placed on Fort Riley before August 1st, and all deer stands and ground blinds must be taken down no later than February 15th. Construction and or use of permanent tree stands are prohibited. A permanent tree stand is defined as any stand that is fastened to a tree by nails, screws, spikes, or similar penetrating objects. Use of nails, spikes, or similar penetrating objects as steps or ladders to access portable tree stands is prohibited. Deer and elk drives are prohibited on Fort Riley. A deer or elk drive is defined as a deliberate action by one or more persons, whether armed or unarmed, whose intent is to cause deer or elk to move within the firearm range of one or more hunters. Individuals that are within eyesight and hearing of one another, as mentor, mentee, guest, or adult child hunts, are not defined as a deer or elk drive. Please hit pause and read carefully the additional regulations you should know. Persons who act as guides on Fort Riley are subject to the same suspension schedule as any offender he or she is guiding. Guides are defined as any person who receives monetary compensation or material services rendered in exchange for a guided hunt. Firearms with ammunition larger than 2 shots shall not be fired within 100 meters of any road designated on the Fort Riley Outdoor Recreation Map and Regulation Summary. Firearms and bows shall not be shot within 200 meters of any building, body of troops, or restricted area, or from or across any improved road. Animals such as horses or mules may not be ridden to purposely hunt, pursue, or drive deer or elk on Fort Riley. Any individual who is actively assisting any big game hunter, as defined by the state of Kansas, must have a Fort Riley access permit. Unless exempt, all individuals must daily check in and out on Fort Riley. Take note that the 2017 Fort Riley hunting access permits will be available only online at the fortriley.isportsman.net beginning December 15, 2016. Please hit pause and read carefully the additional regulations you should know. Hunters must understand the capabilities of their equipment. A general rule of thumb is that a bullet should have 1,000 foot-pounds of kinetic energy to efficiently kill a white-tailed deer, or 1,500 foot-pounds to kill an elk. Please refer to the chart below to choose a caliber or gauge that fits your needs. Those highlighted are the Fort Riley recommended center fire calibers and gauges for elk hunting. Please remember, regardless of what season you hunt or the equipment you use, take some time prior to the hunt to sight your scope in or take some practice shots. Before squeezing the trigger or releasing your bow, make sure you have a good clear shot at the kill zone. Please hunt ethically. Never shoot into a herd of elk. Make the ethical decision to wait for an animal to separate itself and then take a clean, ethical shot. Please remember that these animals are big animals and they may not go down with the first shot you take. If this is the case, take every measure to stay on the same animal when you take your follow-up shot. Please report to Fort Riley Environmental Office any known missed and wounded or observed wounded elk as soon as possible. Wanted. Recent surveillance operations on Fort Riley has led to the prosecution of individuals stealing stands and blinds. If you have any information on stolen hunting equipment and or poaching, please contact the Fort Riley Operation Game Plan at 785-239-GAME. Anyone that provides information that leads to an arrest or citation may be eligible for reward provided by the Fort Riley Outdoorsman's Group for $50 to $500. Conservation officers enforce the natural resource laws, ensure that the conservation management programs are effective, help protect Fort Riley's natural resources. Ethical hunting is expected of all recreationists using Fort Riley. Acting in a disrespectful or unethical manner decreases the quality of hunt for yourself and others. This includes disrupting the rights of others to be in an open Fort Riley area. Please act respectfully and ethically while in the field on Fort Riley. You are encouraged to report harassment to the Fort Riley Game Warden Section at 785-239-6767. Hunt safe and good luck.